So good morning everyone, my name is Lalit Soni and you are watching Drishti IAS. In this live session, we will be discussing the Indian Express newspaper. We will go through important articles of the day and we will try to cover some more news for you, and we will see in the constitution part which we were discussing, we will be discussing the part 3 of the constitution today, that is related to your fundamental rights. We will start with the right to equality and slowly we will be moving forward. Okay. So let's start with the discussion. First we will go through the practice question and then there will be our section, that is know our constitution. As I told you, we will be discussing part 3 today, and then we will be going through these 3 articles, GM mustard and the split verdicts. Recently you know that Supreme Court has given a split verdict. We will see what is split verdict. We will also see what is the issues related to GM mustards. Okay. Then European Union, UK, FTAs and concerns. There are certain free trade agreements we are signing and there are certain clause of you can say country of origin. Okay, and because of which there are certain concerns are there, and we will be talking about that today. Okay, then Mughal era coins in a museum. Recently you know that in when we are talking about the Humayun tomb, there is a new museum which will be inaugurated over there, and they are keeping certain artifacts from the Mughals time. Some of the coins will also be settled over there. We will see which coins are rare and which are which other artifacts are present over there. Okay, then for your own read there will be one article and there will be the practice question in the last. Okay. Now moving to the practice question for the which was given to you in the previous lecture, that is economic survey is conducted by whom. We have discussed the economic survey, we have discussed the budget. Okay, we have gone through the overview of that, and I have told you that in your for your own read you have to read the budget and the economic survey. Anyways, the question says economic survey is conducted by or the prepared by. I have made it corrected. Prepared by whom? Okay, so Department of Economic Affairs, option A would be your right answer, because economic survey is a domestic document. Here World Bank and the International Monetary Fund has nothing to do with it, and when we are talking about the budget and economic survey, these are presented by the government, and that is why RBI won't be having any role. Now moving further to the first your new section, that is basically your know our constitution. We have discussed the part 1, that is union and territories. We have discussed the part 2, that is citizenship, and today we will be discussing what are the benefits which are attached to being a citizen of India. There are certain fundamental rights which has been guaranteed by the constitution to the citizens. There are certain rights which are available to aliens as well, but the thing is there are certain rights which are exclusively for citizens. Okay, so let's start with the part 3 of the constitution. It is related to your fundamental rights. Here you will see there are various rights. When we are talking about the fundamental right part 3, there are rights that is from 12th to 35. These rights are basically related to you can say part 3. But the thing is, when we are talking about the fundamental rights, they are divided in various you can say heads, and we will be discussing that. We will be starting with the first. Okay, Article 12 and 13 when we are talking about. Okay, so Article 12 and 13, they basically talk about what is state, what is law. Okay, so in the Article 12, there are definition of state which is given. State means that any body which is basically a part of your government, otherwise they are performing certain duty for the government. And other than that, whatever government bodies are there, whatever bodies which are there in the public sphere, these are all part of the state. When we are talking about the Supreme Court judgment, etc., they have actually extended the definition of state to various bodies which are performing in the you can say public sector as well. But the thing is, these are the definitions which are given in the you can say Article 12. Now moving further, if we see what is Article 13, Article 13 is basically talking about law, which is saying that if you are going for making any law, that law should be within the boundaries of the constitution, and if it is violating any provision of the constitution, that law should be you can say unconstitutional or void. Okay, they have actually said that the Article 368 and you can say when we are talking about the amendments. Okay, so they have said that this amendment won't be considered law under Article 13. Okay, so that is there. We will not go into details, because if we go for the detailed discussion, that will be very difficult for us to wrap up the session in 1 hour. Now moving further, Article 14. Now when we are talking about the fundamental rights, there are various fundamental rights starting from Article 14. If we see, that talks about right to equality. Okay, and from 14 to 18 you will see all these rights are somehow related to equality. So we will be talking about that. Article 14, equality before law. Okay, there are two concepts, equality before law and equal protection of law. Okay, when we are talking about equal protection and equality before, these are these laws are basically talking about one thing, that a person should not be discriminated on certain bases. Okay, so here when we are talking about article 14, that is talking about the equality before law. Okay, they are saying that when we are talking about the state should not discriminate among the citizens. Okay, moving further among the citizen on the grounds. Okay, there are certain grounds which are there. When we are talking about article 15, here you will see prohibition of the discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth. These are the grounds which has been mentioned in article 15. Here it is written that you should not go for any kind of prohibition. When we are talking about the fundamental rights, now these fundamental rights are basically certain kind of restrictions on the state. Okay, whenever there is a government, then government, to make sure that government stays within their limit, there are certain check and balances which are to be given. Okay, certain checks and balances has been given to the executive. There are when we are talking about the legislature, then there are judiciary. So all these three organs of the government, they have checks and balances on each other. Now when we are talking about the citizens, they have been given these rights. These rights are acting as a check and balance, or you can say these rights are acting as a limit to the power of the government. Okay, so government or the, you can say, state cannot discriminate on the basis of the religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth only. Okay, there are certain you can say criteria when you will see that government is going for the classification. The meritorious classification or reasonable classification is allowed, but only on the ground of these things, that let's say if there is a woman and she is denied you can say some kind of employment just because she is woman, that is discrimination on the basis of sex. Or okay, so now that is not you can say allowed in India. Now moving further, article 16, that is equality of opportunity in matters of the public employment. Okay, so here also they are saying that when we are talking about the public employment and the opportunities related to economic opportunities, in that case also government should not discriminate. Okay, there are also grounds which are given in the article 16. Then coming to the article 17, that is abolition of the untouchability. You know that the socio economic background if we see, or the history if we see, there are problems of untouchability and there are problems, or you can say atrocities against the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, etc. And for that, you know that in article 17 they have come up with the abolition of the phenomena of untouchability. Now the thing is, this particular term that has not been defined, but the thing is there are certain examples which has been given. Okay, on the basis of the social fabric, okay, that particular thing will be decided. So that is abolition of untouchability. Then coming to the article 18, that is abolition of titles. Any kind of titles, like earlier you know that these titles like Maharaja, Maharaja or other than that you know Rai Bahadur, all these titles were used, and they have said that these titles has been abolished, because when you put a title in front of someone's name, that actually give a sense of some kind of discrimination which has been done, or you can say a sense of superiority which has been attached to that. Okay, so that is why this titles has also been abolished. So we have discussed article 14, 15, 16, 17 and 18. These articles are belonging to, you can say, class that is right to equality. Okay, other than that we have discussed one thing, that is equality before law. When I told you equality before law, I mentioned one more term, that is equal protection of law. These terms has been discussed by me in our previous sections in this analysis sessions. If you have not watched those videos, you can watch those videos. Otherwise also you can go and read a note in that. Obviously I would I'm sure that they have discussed this equality before law and equal protection of law. Okay, so that is about it. Now moving to the today's discussion, that is basically related to our newspaper. Why Supreme Court couldn't agree on environmental release of the GM mustard. GM mustard, if we are talking about, that is basically genetically modified crop. Sorry, genetically modified. Here we are talking about mustard, so that is mustard. Otherwise genetically modified crops. Basically what we are doing is we are introducing certain kind of genes inside these crops so that we can get desired results. Let's say when we are talking about the crops, mostly we think about the first yield. Second is if there is some kind of pest resistance, drought resistance, such phenomena we think about. Okay, these are the traits we desire in our crop, that because of the drought that crop should not fail, or when we are talking about yield of the crop, that should be more, or you can say the production of the crops that should be more. For that there are certain changes which scientists are doing so that they can get the desired result. Such you can say changes which are done by the introduction of a particular gene, these are called as genetically modified crops. Okay, now recently when we are talking about India, we have BT cotton. BT cotton is a crop which we are using right now. This is a genetically modified crop, but this is only for the commercial use, because you know that cotton, we are not, it is not an edible crop. Okay, so that is why we are going for the commercial use. Okay, most of the cotton which India is producing, that is BT cotton. Okay, now recently there was another crop which is there, that is BT mustard. Now for that, you can say they are asking for the environmental clearances or environmental release. Okay, when we are talking about the environmental release, that is basically they will try to go for further test, putting them into the, you can say, open environment. Okay, so that is there, and for that Supreme Court has actually said no, or actually not no, actually there was a, you can say, a split verdict. Split verdict means that whenever there is a bench of two judges of, or you can say even number of judges, in that case if they are not able to come on a consensus, okay, so in such cases you can say that that is a split verdict. Okay, now what will happen once split verdict is given, because one judge is saying yes, second judge is saying no, what will be the conclusion over here? So here in such cases CGI will go for creating a larger bench, and the larger bench will decide on the matter. Okay, now coming to the article over here, other than that also there is this BT brinjal that is also in the discourses, so please keep a tap on that. Okay, now coming to the article, two judges bench of Supreme Court on Tuesday delivered a split verdict whether to allow environmental release of genetically modified mustard or not, whether the approval given by the genetic engineering appraisal committee. Now this GEAC, Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, that is the body which has been authorized under the Environment Protection Law. Now this particular body will give the clearance. Okay, now that clearance has been challenged, or the approval has been challenged in the courts. Okay, here you will see it is a body that is responsible for the for providing proposals related to the genetically engineered organisms to proceed with the with field trials following the environmental release was done properly. So once environmental release is done, then they will go for the field trial. Okay, now GEC, the second major push to the GM mustard as the first GM crop that means to be there for the human consumption. Okay, first, as I told you, that is BT cotton. So that is the first crop. Second crop is your GM mustard, but this is the first edible crop, or you can say that is for the human consumption. Okay, so that is there. Here you will see Bacillus thuringiensis cotton, that is BT cotton, is the only GM crop that has been approved by the you can say these committees for the cultivation. Now when a split decision is delivered, the case is referred to the CGI for placing it before the larger bench. Okay, we will talk about that later. Both judges directed the Union of India to evolve a national policy with regard to the GM crop. Now both the judges here, though they have given the split verdict on the approval, but the thing is they have given a direction to the Government of India or Union of India that is related to evolve a national policy with respect to or with regard to the GM crops, to consult expert farmer representatives and the state governments for the issue. Okay, now story of GM mustard, if we see, there are various stances wherein these particular GM crops has come. There are various levels of testings or trials which are there. Okay, in September 2015, okay, the Center for Genetical Manipulation of Crops Plant, that is there in Delhi University, sought GEAC's approval for the environment release of the DMH11, that is commonly known as the GM mustard. Now you can remember this, that is DMH11. Okay, that is basically the scientific name or the name which is given to this particular crop, that is GM mustard. Moving further, the mustard flowers contain both female and the male reproductive organs, which makes plant largely self-pollinating. Okay, hold on. Okay, so basically they are saying that this particular crop, when we are talking about the mustard, they have both the male as well as female reproductive organs. That is why they are self-pollinating. Otherwise, if the flowers has different organs, then the, you can say, species like honeybees, etc., or the, you can say, there are this various insects which are there, they actually are helping in the pollination. But since it is a crop which is having both the reproductive organs inside them, then that is why they do not need any kind of further assistance from outside. They will go for the self pollination. Okay, in that particular case, what they have done is that they contain two alien genes. So they have taken the alien genes. When we are talking about the GM cotton, mustard, they have taken one gene, that is basically Barney's gene. Okay, and this will interfere with the pollination. They will actually sterilize the male part over here. Here you will see, renders the plant male sterile. Okay, and resulting plant, since the organ, let's say there is this male organ and then there is female organ. Okay, now what they have done is that they have sterilized the, you can say, male organ, so that is not working right now. So now they will go for the cross pollination. They will take another gene from some other crop and they will introduce it into the plant artificially. Okay, so here you will see, resulting plant is crossed with the fertile mustard flowers containing the second gene, that is bar star gene. Okay, so now this bar star gene, what will do is that they will go for the cross pollination, and then this particular, the effect of this Barney's gene will be you can say neutralized by this bar star gene. Okay, and the resulting variety, that will be the GM mustard, that is high yielding variety of mustard. Okay, then in 2017 they have actually GEAC has recommended the environment release of the mustard. Ministry of Environment sent the proposal back to the GEC for the re-examination. Okay, so these dates are not important for us, but after that, this particular proposal was accepted by the center on October 25th. Then this case come before the court. Okay, here you will be see this case, this particular approval which was given, that was challenged, the decision to approve the environmental release of the GM mustard before the Supreme Court, and then because of which they have given the split verdict. Now this verdict has been given on particular basis whether the GEAC decision making process was legal. Now the thing is, now there are two things they are asking. One is the process which has been followed by the GEAC. Okay, whether that process was legal, okay, or they have followed the process. Otherwise, second thing is whether it violated the precautionary principle for the scientific innovation. Now this precautionary principle is basically a environmental tool which is used by the judiciary in the cases where is this approval etc. are sought. Other than that, also they are using it to, you can say, decide whether there is any kind of harm to the environment or not. Okay, here you will be see the precautionary principle is a standard test in environmental litigation, is recognized as a facet of right to clean environment and a subset of Article 21, that is fundamental right to life. Okay, now there are two judges which has given different verdicts. What they have said, that one judge is saying that the particular process of giving this approval, that was not right, and because of which this particular approval is not right or at all. Okay, so basically here the field test that GEAC committed to conduct with this particular organization did not take place. So basically they are saying that there was one particular test which was supposed to happen, but that did not happen. Okay, hold on. So why there is a difference in the news in Dehradun edition versus Delhi edition? Because there are, when we are talking about the different region, the newspaper editions are different. So you can just refer to the news article over here and search in, because that will be there. When we are talking about this article, that is in the explained law. So you can go directly on the explained page and directly look at that. Okay. Now coming back to the discussion over here. So here they have said that the committee, they did not go for the particular kind of test which they were committed, and they were committed to perform, and because of which this approval which has been given, that is on a basis of a flawed process, and that is why this particular approval is not right. Okay, when coming to the another judge, that is Justice Karol, they have he has said that the process is right and everything is right, and he has gone for the, he said that the approval was right. Okay, so that is why the two here decisions were not in consensus, and that is why this is called a split verdict, and now it will be referred to the CGI, and CGI will go for a larger bench. From this particular discussion, what is important for us is that just know that there are 2-3 things. One is, what is GM mustard? Okay, we have talked about the MH11. Okay, so this name you can remember. Other than that, talking about the BT cotton, they have mentioned the name of the Bacillus thuringiensis, so you can remember that. Okay, coming to the next one, there is another you can say GM crop, that is BT brinjal. So please keep a tab on that. Other than that, Genetical Engineering Appraisal Committee, that is GEAC. Now this is very much important for you. Talking about this particular body, you can say search about that particular body, otherwise I'll be discussing that. So these things are basically important for you. Okay, this verdict won't be important. Just the thing is, remember that how this GM mustard is based on. Here we have discussed this, that there are two genes they have used, that is one is Barnase and second is bar star. Okay, so you can remember that. Now moving further, here you will see laws related to the GM mustard. Here you will see regulatory framework. The approval and the regulation of GM crop in India is overseen by the GEAC, that is we have talked about Genetical Engineering Appraisal Committee, under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and the Climate Change, following the guidelines under the Environment Protection Act 1986. Okay, so this particular thing you can remember, that GEAC is having also getting authority from this Environmental Protection Act, and it is under the Ministry of Environment. Okay, moving further, Food Safety and the Standard Authority of India, that is FSSAI, ensures the safety of the food products including the GM food under the Food Safety Standards Act 2006. So I hope that is clear. Now moving further, here you will see what is split verdict. As I told you, whenever there is a bench which is generally 2 judges or 3 judges, when we are talking about the Supreme Court benches, so one is your division bench, and second, mostly you have heard about the constitutional bench. Okay, when we are talking about the division bench, most of the matters are basically heard by the division bench. Division bench will be of either 2 judges or 3 judges. Okay, now when we are talking about the 2 judges verdict, okay, so if one judge is giving in yes, one judge is giving in no, so there is no conclusion. In that case, it is called as a split verdict. Okay, second thing is, if we are going for the larger benches as well, like benches of 4, 5, 6 judges, in that case also, if we see that odd even number of judges are there and half of them are in favor of yes and half of them are in favor of no, that is also called split verdict. Now once split verdict is given, that will be referred to the CGI. CGI will go for the larger bench. Okay, now when we are talking about the division bench, as I told you, that will generally be of 2 or 3 judges, but it can be larger. Okay, so that is there. Second thing is, when we are talking about the constitutional bench, constitutional bench is basically a bench which is, you know, looking into the matters of the constitution or the issues of you can say general importance. When we are talking about something related to basic structure, fundamental rights, or any kind of constitutional law, if we have to discuss or interpret the constitution, in that case there will be a constitutional bench that will also be decided by CGI, and this will be a larger bench. Okay, mostly when we are talking about the constitutional bench, that will be 4 or more judges. Okay, because the issue is of importance here, that is why 5 and more judges will be there. The largest you can say bench, that was Keshwanand Bharti judgments bench, was the largest in India till now. So you can tell me in the comment box that how many judges were there in the Keshwanand Bharti case. Okay, so now moving further, we have discussed this. What happens next? As I told you, that CGI will decide on the larger bench, and then importance of the bench size. To avoid the split verdict, generally they go for the odd number of judges, but sometimes if the bench is of 2 judges, then there will be these issues they might happen. Okay, now moving to the next part, that is India creates a leg room to sign UK and EU FTAs with Custom Act amendments. Okay, so when we are talking about the budget, they have gone for the, you know, change in some custom related rules, etc. Now when we are talking about the FTAs, UK and EU, when we are talking about the European Union and the UK or United Kingdom or the, you know, parts of Europe, we are trying to go for various FTAs. Okay, now the concern over here is that basically the country of origin. Okay, so that is the concern, and on that particular concern they have actually come up with a plan over here. They have actually amended the Customs Act, and then they have you know, replaced some terminologies, and now they are hoping that there will be, you know, less or misuse by this particular country of origin. Now country of origin, what is country of origin? I would like to tell you that over here. Let's say India is having a FTA with Switzerland. Okay, and Switzerland is having some kind of trade relation with China. Okay, that is the example which has been given in this particular you can say article as well. So it will be easy for you to remember, so that is why I have taken. Now India is importing certain stuff from Switzerland. Okay, now China is sending certain stuff to Switzerland. Now Switzerland is sending a particular you can say item that is of Chinese origin, and that is going to India. So ultimately what is happening, that a country of origin over here of this particular item is China. Okay, and when we are talking about the customs related laws, etc., India is losing a revenue. Okay, so basically from here they are coming to Switzerland, and from Switzerland that particular item is coming to India. So now technically speaking, India is not importing from China, but the thing is they are basically getting here from the Switzerland, and here we have FTA, free trade agreement. Now this duty which was supposed to be paid by China to India, that is not being paid, okay, because if directly speaking if China is sending something to India, there is various duties are there which are to be paid, okay. Let's say there is this duty of nearly 11%. Okay, now this 11% revenue should have been given to India because they have imported certain item and there was certain duty which was imposed over there. Okay, but through this route, because we have a FTA, free trade agreement with Switzerland, so here we are paying only 2% duty, or we are being paid only 2% duty. In that case, we are losing a revenue around 9%. Okay, so that is the issue of country of origin. Now, when we are going for a free trade agreement with the countries in Europe, then basically there are when we are talking about Switzerland itself, for an example, they are having this free trade agreement or the you can say trade relation with China. Okay, so this issue might arise in this FTAs as well. So now coming to the discussion over here, you will say to create a legroom for signing free trade agreement with the developed nations such as UK and European Union, the Union Budget 2024 introduced an amendment in the Customs Act, liberalizing the compliance with the value addition norms, typically guard against the misuse concession which is given in the trade pacts. Okay, now they are basically saying that they have actually made some changes in the Customs Act, which we will see. Now, value addition norms guided by the rule of origin. Okay, now rule of origin, which is related to your country of origin. Now, what is rule of origin? We will talk about. Okay, assumes a special significance at the time when India is signing a slew of FTAs. Rule of origin are the criteria needed to determine the national source of a product. Okay, rule of origin, the term origin over here is that which is the source of that particular item. Okay, so you can say over here that is they are determining the national source of a product. Okay, while trade agreement helps boost the trade volumes with the partner countries, if often risk a third country benefiting from the concessions, resulting in a loss of revenue if rule of origin are breaches. In this case, if China is the third party over here, or you can say third country over here, okay, and this rule of origin is breached because this item is not belonging to Switzerland. Okay, we have gone for the you can say FTA with the Switzerland, their item, whatever things are being produced over there. Okay, so for that we have this FTA. But if this rule of origin is breached, now China's items are coming to India via a different route over here, and we are losing a revenue. Okay, so basically if when we are talking about the free trade agreements, we are going for the boosting the trade between the two countries, and if third country is taking advantage because of the breach of the rule of the origin, that is a cause of concern which has been given over there. Okay. Now, moving further over here, you will see while the trade agreement helps boost trade volumes between the partners, it often risks a third country benefiting from the concession, resulting in the loss of revenue if rules of origin are breached. Okay, now the government on Tuesday amended the section 28D of the Customs Act, substituting certificate of origin with the proof of origin. Okay, now there are two terms which are given over here, that is, one is certificate of origin. Earlier, what used to happen is that in such cases, they used to use this certificate of origin. In that case, the country has to given the certificate of origin. Now, most of the time what is happening is that these countries are not, they are ever giving this certificate of origin, and because of which these FTAs are having these concerns. Okay. Now, this proof of origin. Now, proof of origin is a wider term. In this, there are two or three more things which are added over here. When we are talking about the proof of origin, it includes certificate of origin. This is included in that. Other than that, there are two more things. One more thing, that is self declaration, which is given mostly when we are talking about the global practices. In the global practices, that is given, that is self declaration in the line of the global practices. So right now, India has actually gone for the proof of origin. So that includes that the certificate of origin, plus here you can see that is self declaration by the traders. Okay. Now, self declaration is that whenever we are talking about the item which is leaving the Switzerland, the trader over here is saying that particular item is belonging to Switzerland only. Okay, or when we are talking about the certificate origin, that is a certificate saying that this is belonging to, you can say, Switzerland only. Okay, now the thing is, when we are talking about certificate, authenticity of certificate is more, okay, than the self declaration. But anyways, they have actually gone for the inclusion of the self declaration as well. Okay, with the global custom norms, they also expressed concern over the implementation, as allowing the self certification could result in the breach and require a high degree of integrity with the exporting countries. Okay, since it is a self declaration, okay, so that is why that is a high degree of integrity should be there in the people of that particular country, so that we can believe that. Okay, most of the time when we are talking about the self declaration, there are high chances of the breach of that particular rule. Okay, now amendments to the to impact future FTAs. So as I discussed over here is that this particular FTA, when we are talking about, we are going for the European Free Trade Association. Okay, European Free Trade Association, we are going for the FTA with this particular association, and there are 5 countries. One of them is basically Switzerland, and there is this trade relation of Switzerland with China. So we have seen the example, so we are risking that particular example in real life. Okay, so basically that is the impact that might happen in the future, because Switzerland is having a trade relation, or you can say free trade agreement with China. China's cheap imports are going to Switzerland, and from Switzerland they might come to India, and since we are going for this self declaration etc., there is no high chances that we might not be able to identify it, and ultimately we will lose a revenue. Okay, so that is there. Moving further, rules of origin breach, we have already seen that. Okay, now there are certain, you can say, regulatory processes wherein you will see that you can say try to make sure that the rules are not breached. Okay, there are certain frameworks which are there. India does not have such strong framework. Okay, and that is why there are high chances that we will be losing the revenue over here. Okay, so I hope that is clear. You can go through this particular article. Okay, now moving further to the next part. Before that, just know that what is certificate of origin, what is the self declaration, what is proof of you can say origin. I have discussed 2 terms. One is certificate of origin, proof of origin, and the self declaration. Other than that, please remember what is rule of origin, what is you can say country of origin. All these things you should remember. Okay, now moving further to the next article, that is related to Mughal era coins, helmet, and the that double the cooking vessel. What's inside the Humayun tomb museum? Okay, so here we don't have to focus much on what is inside etc. I have taken this news because Humayun tomb is in news. Okay, when we are talking about the Humayun tomb, there is this in the vicinity, they will go for a museum. That museum will be inaugurated. Okay, and that is why this particular item was in news. Second thing is, when we are talking about the Humayun tomb, it is in the, you can say, Nizamuddin area. You know that the Saint Nizamuddin was there. Okay, the Sufi Saint Nizamuddin, and when he died, and there was this Dargah of Nizamuddin Aulia, and in the vicinity of that particular Dargah, you will see there are various tombs which are available over there, because it is believed that to be buried inside in the vicinity of a particular saint or a Sufi saint, that will be you can say auspicious for those who are buried over there. And that is why you will see in the when we are talking about Mehroli area or the Nizamuddin area, there are various, you can say, graves which are there. Okay, and when we are talking about this particular tomb, Humayun tomb, you will see it is actually considered as the graveyard of the Mughals, because most of the Mughals are basically buried over here in that particular you can say area. Okay, moving further, if we see who was Humayun, you know that he was father of Akbar. Okay, and then when we are talking about the tomb, who has built the tomb, so obviously who will you can say, when we are talking about this particular tomb, it has been built by the then emperor, or you can say in the patronage of then emperor, that is Akbar. And there are certain elements which has been added over here. You will see in at the entrance, if you get inside the Humayun tomb, you will find that there are certain stars which has been put at the gateway over here. So you will find out that these stars are there. That is a symbol that Humayun used to like. He was very interested in the astronomy, and that is why Akbar has put these stars over there. So these are certain things. Other than that, coming to the article, Humayun traveled 3 times more than the Marco Polo, the famed explorer, covering around 34,000 kilometers, because he was exiled from India. Okay, you know that the battle with Sher-Shah Suri, and he actually left India. Otherwise also he has been kind of a wanderer. He was interested in books, so that is why it is there. And here you will be seeing, so obsessed with the astronomy and the astrology. As I told you, he was interested in that. Other than that, wore a specific color each day of the week to align it with the planet of the day. Okay, so that is the kind of obsession he has with the astronomy. He was so fond of the books, he used to carry his own libraries on the camelback. Okay, and it is also said that he actually died while he was actually taking a book from his library on the staircase, and then he fell from there, and after that for for a while he was there on the bed, and then he died. Okay, so Humayun Tomb World Heritage Site Museum, that is why it is important. Now this is in the vicinity of the Sundar Nursery and the Nizamuddin, as I told you. Okay, so you can remember that. Other than that, here you will see the idea is to promote the tourism and help people understand the place and its history for better. That is why this museum is being set up. Museum managed by the Archaeological Survey of India, and it is along the Yamuna river. When we are talking about this particular whole setup of this Nizamuddin Aulia, the Dargah, and this part of you can say Humayun's tomb, this is in the vicinity of Yamuna. Okay. Now designed like a Baoli, this particular museum is designed as a Baoli or a stepped well. The museum building is said to be underground. Okay. Then pear-shaped water vessel of the Johar Aftabshi. Okay, so this, when we are talking about the Johar Aftabshi, he was the person who has written one of the biography of Humayun. Okay, and when we are talking about this particular pear-shaped water vessel, that has also been placed in the museum. I don't know what is the significance of that, but that has been placed over there. And then a helmet in which Humayun used to cook horse meat while facing food shortage during the travel to Persia. So that is also been put over here. Okay, now what is important for us is that the coins from the Akbar's era, okay, that has been put over here along with the Humayun's artifacts. Other other Mughal artifacts has been also been added over here. So they have actually used coins from the Akbar's era, and these coin, one side they have Allah written on this, and on the second side they have written Ram on this. Okay, so that is an example of secularism which Akbar had. Okay, or the kind of tolerance Akbar had at that point of time. Okay, so that has been basically that particular coin has been kept inside that museum, and coins from Jahangir's era were the most expensive coins. Okay, so you can remember this particular fact over here. And when we are talking about the coins from the Bahadur Shah Zafar's reign, these were basically quite rare to find, and that is why they have kept this particular, you can say, in this particular museum. Okay, other than that, when we are talking about the Nizamuddin area, there are various dargahs, and you know that Nizamuddin Aulia was a Sufi saint, and then he has a disciple, that is Amir Khusro. Okay, and he has seen various dynasties in Delhi. Okay, when we are talking about the Khaljis, etc., he was there in the court of Alauddin Khalji as well. Okay, so his dargah is also there in that particular area. Okay, other than that, also the Dara Shikho, the you can say son of Shahjahan, and his you can say his body is also been buried over here. So all these important personalities of the medieval time has been buried in that particular area. And specifically speaking, the Humayun's tomb, if we talk about, that is the place which is called as the graveyard of the Mughals. Okay, now moving further to the next article, that is related to your Chinese scientists. Okay, Chinese scientist finds trace of water in lunar soil. There was this expedition which has gone to moon, that is Chang'e 5. Okay, that is China's you can say lunar expedition, and that they have collected the samples, and from that sample they have actually found you can say some mineral which is having a hydrate, or you can say a hydrate mineral which is having the presence of water. Okay, so here you will say, based on the lunar sample written by the Chang'e 5 mission in 2020, Chinese scientists have found a hydrated mineral enriched with the molecular water. In 2009, Chandrayaan 1 spacecraft detected the signs of hydrated minerals in the form of oxygen and hydrogen molecules in the sunlit area of the moon. Okay, we will talk about Chandrayaan 1. So Chandrayaan 1 has actually said that there is water on the moon. After that, there are various expeditions of the NASA, okay, that is Moon Mineralogy Mapper, etc. They have actually proved it that there is water on the you can say moon surface. Here you will see we have actually taken the help of NASA's Moon Mineralogy Mapper imaging spectrometer that help confirm the discovery of water locked in the mineral on the moon. Okay, so that particular credit goes to India, that is Chandrayaan 1. In 2020, NASA also has done that. Okay, and recently they have actually, the Chinese expedition has also done that. Okay, now here when we are talking about this particular mineral, then they have named it ULM1, that is unknown lunar mineral, that is ULM1, okay, that contain the water molecule. Okay, other than that, they have found nearly 1,000 minerals in that particular samples. Okay, now here you will see Chandrayaan 1, if we are talking about, there are certain you can say achievements which we have discussed over here. Chandrayaan 1, which was sent in 2008, discovered water molecule on the lunar surface, mapped the moon in the high resolution. And second was Chandrayaan 2 in 2019, which we have tried for the landing, but because of the communication got broken and we could not land over there. So we have an orbiter which was successfully placed into the lunar orbit. Coming to the Chandrayaan 3, since we already have a orbiter over there, we have sent a lander and a rover to the moon. Okay, and we have achieved soft landing on the south pole of the moon. So India becomes the first country to soft land on the south pole of the moon in the world, and lunar surface analysis will be done by the Chandrayaan 3. Okay, so that is about the Chandrayaan series when we are talking about the India's moon missions. Okay. Now coming to the next part, that is basically related to India-Colombia 65 years of diplomatic relations. There are various editorial which has been covered in the Indian Express, but I have not taken that. Okay, right now we have taken this particular map based question over here. Here you will see when we are talking about the Colombia, that is located in the South America, and recently in the last 2-3 sessions we have talked about the South America a lot. We have talked about the Golden Triangle. We have talked about the Lithium Triangle. Okay, we have talked about the Lithium Triangle, and then we have talked about you can say Bolivia, etc. We have talked about Peru recently. So that is why I have taken this particular you can say continent over here, because there are chances that they might ask you something from there. Right now we are talking about the Colombia. This is here in the north side of the South America. Okay, and it is having boundary with the Caribbean Sea as well as the North Pacific Ocean over here. Okay, when we are talking about the equator, which is also passing through Colombia over here. When we are talking about the borders of the Colombia, here you will be see this side we have Venezuela, here we have Brazil, and here we have Peru. Okay, so when we are talking about this is Quito. So you can remember, other than that, when we see the northern side over here, this particular here, that is basically Panama. Okay, so that you can remember, that is about the you can say Colombia. We have talked about the Caribbean Sea, we have talked about the North Pacific Ocean. Okay, so that is having boundary with the Colombia, maritime boundary with Colombia. Okay, so I hope that is clear. Now moving to the last part, that is for your own read, there is this mitigation versus adaptation. This particular article you can go and read, and in the end there is this a practice question, that is under which act does the Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee functions for the regulation of GM crops in India. We have discussed that: the Environment Protection Act 1986, Food Safety and Standards Act 2006, Biological Diversity Act 2002, and Seeds Act 1966. Okay, so you can actually go through this particular question and attempt this question and answer in the comment box. Okay. So with that, I would like to take your leave. I'll see you in the next session. If you have not subscribed the channel, please subscribe it. Have a nice day. Thank you.